Where are you trying to go? Who's going to help you get there, and why? Welcome to PSA. My name is Felix if you're new around here. And if you're back, thank you to all our reoccurring viewers. But please take a moment, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and let's continue to grow this online community. Thank you. I have to start by sending our thoughts, condolences, love, and prayers to the people of Maui and the Lahaina community. The devastation has really affected me and so many others that have experienced the beauty of your island, but I know nowhere near as hard as it has impacted those on the island and the many lives that we've lost. There are so many unanswered questions and questionable leadership choices that are being looked into, and although justice will never replace what has been lost, where is God in the midst of this tragedy? This is a reoccurring excuse for disbelief in God when tragedy strikes. But even if God did not exist, which he does, it would not stop tragedies from taking place. He is a good God who has left us to our own free will, and he has given us 66 inspired books written by approximately 40 authors over 1,500 years, which is the Bible, to help us guide that free will to the best of our ability, to serve each other, and indefinitely make it back to him. Now, whether a natural occurrence or subterfuge, what is taking place in Maui, there's just an irony that a church is the only building within the few-mile radius that stood strong and unblemished throughout the fires in Maui. I hope it puts the fear of God in anyone bringing harm to the locals. I hope it brings peace and healing to all of the locals, knowing that God has not left them and he is in the midst of the rubble right there with them. There's a transitional moment that I want to highlight in the scriptures where the persecuted people of God find themselves trapped between their oppressor and a large body of water. It's in Exodus 15:19. When the horses, chariots, and horsemen went into the sea, the Lord brought the waters of the sea back over them, but the Israelites walked through the sea onto the dry ground. Then Miriam, the prophet, Aaron's sister, took the timbrel into her hands, and all the women followed her with timbrels and dancing. And Miriam sang to them, "Sing to the Lord, for he is highly exalted. Both horse and driver has hurled into the sea." Then Moses led Israel from the Red Sea, and they went into the desert of Shur. For 3 days they traveled in the desert without finding water. When they came to Marah, they could not drink its water because it was bitter. So the people grumbled against Moses, saying, "What are we to drink?" Then Moses cried out to the Lord, and the Lord showed him a piece of wood, and he threw it into the water, and the water became fit to drink. There the Lord issued a ruling and an instruction for them to put them to the test. He said, "If you listen carefully to the Lord your God and do what is right in his eyes, if you pay attention to his commandments and all his decrees, I will not bring on you any of the diseases I have brought on the Egyptians, for I am the Lord who heals you." Then they came to Elim, where there were 12 springs and 70 palm trees, and they camped near the water. It says, then Miriam the prophet. Sounds like another woman of God leading his people back to worship him. Which kind of reminds me, how amazing was Tanya's message last week? I know lately I've been highlighting a lot of women in the Bible, But I guess when you marry such a strong woman of God, it's a little easier to spot some other ones. Is where you're going to be refreshed actually draining you? Is your well drying up? The way we start changing our situation is by changing our minds. Your mind moves and your soul and spirit follows. God didn't call you to a promised land to leave you stuck on the other side of the Red Sea. You don't have a mission on your heart, a vision in your mind, because you are meant to stand still in the wilderness wondering why you are not being led forward. If your leader is not moving you forward, he's not leading you, he's holding you back. Every time Moses didn't follow the words of God, he found hardship. So ultimately, God needed to put other people in the mission to complete the mission. Don't be so stubborn you stunt your or the mission's progress, not being open to opinion or help from others who God may have placed in your path. Moses was not self-appointed, he was God-appointed for the people of Israel. It even took a burning bush to open Moses' eyes. Don't let a Pharaoh stop your flow. Don't settle for the wilderness when you have been called to the promised land of Canaan. In the chapter before, in Exodus 14:19, it says, "The angel of God who had been traveling in front of Israel's army withdrew and went behind them. The pillar of cloud also moved from the front and stood behind them, coming between the armies of Egypt and Israel. Throughout the night, the cloud brought darkness to the one side and light to the other side, so neither went near the other all night long." Sometimes you will be led from the front, but sometimes you will need to bring up the rear and make sure that where you left has not come back to pull you down. But we may all need a mind shift to be able to see it. Later on in the Bible, in the New Testament, the Apostle Paul refers to this mind shift in this way. In Romans 12:2, "Do not conform to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good and pleasing and perfect will." Then you be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able. Let's stop trying to prove stuff to people about yourself when God is trying to use you to prove how good he is with you. My wife Tanya and I are so full of dreams, so full of visions, that so often we find ourselves wondering if we are where we are supposed to be. We honestly ask ourselves, are we doing what we're supposed to be doing? But instead of falling back on our feelings or getting stuck on our obstacles, we move forward in hopes of honoring God. Egypt may have not been completely evil, but it did become irrelevant to the people of Israel. Your Egypt may have been fine for a season, but God may now need you to move along. Israel leaves Egypt for the good of the masses. Now, the people of Lahaina may not have the provisions that the powers that are working against them have, but I pray that they do not lose focus on the miracle-working power of God, that he can make things better. If Israel can make it across the Red Sea and God let it collapse on Egypt, may he show the same mercy and justice on Maui's people. Maybe Maui's Miriam is Tulsi Gabbard. Maui's governing needs a major shift. And we need to know we might still be trying to figure things out, but it's never about me or you, it's always about we. And if you know anything about the scriptures, God is going to bless you as long as you move for the good of the masses and not for the selfish. Let's do all we can to help Maui's people, and let's keep our eyes open this week for who God has placed in your life to turn you away from heading back into the wilderness and move forwards into your promised land. All that God is all that we need. And until next week, let's love more, and I'll see you at the next PSA. Aloha. I know it's a tough week. I hope you found something of substance in this message. Please check out some of the others and share them with the first person that comes to mind. And let's keep Maui in our prayers. I love you guys. See you next week.